Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Richard Yep, ACA's Chief Executive Officer. I want to let you know that the ACA staff has worked very hard in terms of the technology and logistics involved with creating and producing this candidates forum. Our team, which was led by Brandy McIntyre, our Governance and Executive Office Manager, worked tirelessly to make sure that tonight's event would be a success once the Nominations and Elections Committee came up with this idea to help you learn more about our candidates for ACA President-elect. At this time, I'm honored to introduce tonight's moderator for this candidates forum. She's the immediate past president of ACA and our current Nominations and Elections Chair, Dr. Heather Treeple.
Thank you, Rich. Hi, and welcome everyone to our first ever ACA virtual Meet the Candidates for President-elect. We're so pleased to have all of you here with us tonight. I wanted to say a special thank you to our Nominations and Elections Committee, including ACA past presidents Patricia Arredondo and Robert Smith, and current Governing Council members Donna Gibson, Jason Moratsky, and Jane Reineck. I also want to say a special welcome to our 3 ACA candidates for President-elect, Dr. Judy Daniels, Dr. Kimberly Frazier, and Dr. Elizabeth O'Brien. Thank you for being here with us this evening. A few brief notes about how it's going to work tonight. First, each candidate was given the opportunity to introduce themselves in a pre-recorded video, which we'll view right before we move into our candidate questions. Following introductions, we'll begin our Q&A portion of the event. Each candidate will be given 2 to 3 minutes to answer the 4 questions that the ACA Nominations and Elections Committee has prepared for them. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with the brief introductory messages from our candidates.
Good evening. It is my deep honor to speak with you this evening as a nominee for ACA's 71st presidency. My name is Judy Daniels, and I'm coming to you from Hawaii. I am seeking this role because I care deeply about our profession, and I believe that my 30 years of experience as a counselor and a leader will be instrumental. So let me share a little bit about myself. I have dedicated my career to advocacy, and I am invested in addressing the needs of counselors and clients through a variety of different leadership and advocacy roles. I am a founding board member of Counselors for Social Justice. I'm also a past president of this division, and it is the division which is nominating me for presidency. I have served as a state president for 2 different divisions, ACES and AMCD. And I've been on the Governing Council for ACA for 9 years in a variety of different capacities. I've been on the executive committee, and I've been on numerous task forces related to portability, students, and new professionals. Currently, I serve on the Governing Council as the advisor to the president on issues related to the pandemic and social justice. Now, clearly, we are in an unprecedented time, given the double pandemic of racism and COVID-19. And these issues are hitting our clients and our communities in very, very deep ways. And I've been involved in a number of initiatives around this. Last spring, I was asked to lead a writing group that created ACA's anti-racism statement. I then had the opportunity to serve on the task force to create a multi-year plan to address racism within our profession. If I was elected president, I'm committed to putting issues and addressing issues of racism up front and center, and I will continue to work on ACA's plan. I also believe that we need a diverse cadre of leaders, and therefore I will be creating a mentoring program focusing on diversity. I will channel my energy, my passion, and my experience in so many different ways. And I want to fight fiercely for counselor compensation that is equitable. I believe that it's important that we continue to support our efforts around portability. And I want to continue to support the work I've been doing in climate issues and disaster mental health, and work on resiliency and trauma initiatives. So I've been in the profession for 30 years, and now more than ever, I'm truly passionate about all the different work that we need to do and we can do. It would be truly my privilege to serve as your president, and I look forward to some point being able to meet you in person. Be safe, be well, and take care, and thank you.
Greetings from New Orleans, Louisiana. My name is Kimberly Frazier, and I'm running for ACA President-elect. I currently work at LSU Health Sciences as Associate Professor in the Department of Clinical Rehabilitation and Counseling. I was nominated for President-elect by the Association of Multicultural Counseling and Development, where I served as President as well as ACA Governing Council Representative. I am running for President-elect of ACA because I am passionate about the profession of counseling. I'm passionate about multiculturalism and diversity, and I am passionate about students. It is my hope that I will be able to strengthen initiatives ACA already has, as well as create initiatives that are focused on multiculturalism and diversity that help our student members and our clinical members have voices in the organization. I thank you, and I look forward to meeting you at the town hall. Goodbye.
My name is Elizabeth O'Brien, and I am the ACA presidential candidate nominated by the Association for Spiritual, Ethical, and Religious Values in Counseling, also known as the ACERVIC. ACA has been with me since the beginning of my development as a counselor. As a beginning counselor, a counselor educator, and a practitioner in private practice. I'm at a place in my career where I want to give back to my organization and the members of my organization. I accepted the nomination because it's important to me that ACA continue to grow and bring services and resources that are relevant to our members. When I was a private practitioner and first starting out, it gave me the legal resources that I needed in order to be a competent practitioner. And even during the COVID-19 pandemic, resources were available to me to transition to telemental health so that I could serve my clients. So my professional experiences include being a counselor in K-12 schools and in alternative schools, as well as in community counseling agencies, in private practice, and in psychiatric hospitals. As a counselor educator, I've worked my way up through the ranks in academia to full professorship, and have also served as an executive director of a college counseling clinic. As a leader, I've had the experience of being a treasurer, a board member, and president of a ACERVIC. I've served in ACA Governing Council, have also served on the Financial Affairs Committee, as well as the Executive Committee. My leadership style is a blend of coaching, transformational, and pace setting. And what that means is I want to be able to support individuals by giving them the resources that they need, work as a group so that we can make big changes, and also that I set myself at a high standard and want to bring the best version of myself every day to my work. As president, I think it'll be important to continue initiatives around licensure portability, compensation, promoting diversity within our membership, as well as widening the leadership pipeline so that more folks can be included in that process. I also think that it's important that we continue the work of the Anti-Racism Task Force that was begun in summer of 2020. A new initiative that I'd like to begin as president is to expand our content and resources around trauma. We know that individual and complex trauma are important aspects of our practices. However, we also need to start looking at cumulative trauma that affects communities and groups. As president, I also want to remain open. If 2020 taught us anything, it's that we need to be flexible and able to pivot to respond to emerging needs. So I'd like to stay open for whatever the future holds so that we can face it and work through it together. I appreciate the opportunity to run for ACA president. I hope you've heard something today that's resonated with you, and I look forward to our work together.
Again, I want to thank Judy, Kimberly, and Elizabeth for those introductions. We are excited to learn more about your views as we move into our question and answer period. So for question 1, the country just underwent a divided, challenging, and stressful election. What opportunities and challenges exist for ACA based on the recent election? Judy.
Thank you very much, Heather, and the ACA staff for sponsoring this. So clearly the presidential election showed that our country is clearly divided, and we face a lot of significant challenges with very, very different beliefs about how to solve our country's problems. So we have lots of challenges, as we've heard in the different videos, with double pandemic of racism and COVID, economic hardships, disaster, mental health issues, increasing indices on mental health problems. So clearly there's a lot of different problems, and ACA is a membership organization in which we work both with on both sides of the parties, Democrats and Republicans, and on different legislation that we have. So it's important that we transcend partisan politics and that we support all of our members. And I believe very firmly that where there's crisis and challenges, there's also great opportunities. And I think we have some of those opportunities now. And I think one of the things that I would like to focus on is ACA's vision, which is that every counselor should have, every person should have access to a professional counselor in order to thrive. And clearly now is a time when folks need access to counselors. It's an unprecedented time, and in unprecedented times, I believe we need unprecedented action. So in order to take advantage of the opportunities that we have, as president, I would work to do several different things, some of which I wasn't able to expand on in the video previously. I think we have to expand our reach. And one of the areas I'd like to see us work on is telehealth that is permanent and not just a temporary provision that we have right now. I'd like to see us join with sister organizations to address racism and other systemic barriers, increase our capacity to address the rise of mental health issues and the needs of counselors that are so prevalent these days, initiate a comprehensive education and advocacy campaign to increase public awareness about what we do, how important the work we do is, and how significant it is and how we can help people. I also believe it's important to support healthcare that has a broad focus on the whole person, not just health, but the whole person, and continue our legislative efforts focusing on expanding our awareness and our knowledge of what counselors do, and reach out into lots of different population areas to extend that understanding. These are unprecedented times, and if elected president, I would take action to seize these opportunities and to serve our profession and to best meet the needs of our clients and our communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy. Kimberly.
Thank you. I think it's important for us to look not just at the election, but just 2020 as a whole has been hard for many communities, and we have to focus on that. I think the opportunities that ACA has is that it has diverse membership, it has diverse divisions, and those divisions and ACA already have initiatives and outreach and advocacy that they're doing. I think it's important that the challenge is that ACA needs to engage those diverse members, the diverse divisions, those people that make up those diverse divisions and membership in the Black, Brown, LGBTQ+ communities and other marginalized communities, to let them know that those issues that are important to them are important to ACA, those concerns that they have are concerns of ACA, and the topics that are of interest to them are interests of ACA as well. I think that ACA also needs to do more advertisement to let people know that what are the advocacy projects and outreach and initiatives that they're doing, and collaborate more with their divisions and sister organizations so that we can do more things that will help people feel included, feel like their voices are being heard with the members, with the clinicians, with the students in the organization and outside of the organization as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues on many points that they've made. I think that some of the benefits that I see in terms of the election and the benefits that ACA can utilize at this point are really, people are plugged into advocacy right now. I think more than ever, what we have seen is an election process where people realize that their vote mattered and their voice mattered. And throughout 2020, we have seen an uprising of individuals really speaking out in communities and folks coming together towards common goals. And so carrying that momentum forward within ACA is going to be a great gift. I'm hopeful because within our presidency and our president-elect, what we see is an individual who has gone on record as saying that he will enforce mental health parity laws. Someone who has gone on record stating that they will increase the number of mental health professionals in schools that speak out on behalf of LGBTQ+ and sexual affectional minorities in terms of gaining mental health care. And are showing a great level of diversity within their cabinets that they're putting together. I believe that sets a tone that I think can be very useful for ACA as we're trying to move things forward in terms of legislation. I think some of the issues that we may see is some advocacy fatigue.
the reality is that 2020 has been a very long year. And so as people are moving forward and advocating for these causes, what we're seeing is an uprising in terms of the pandemic and the physical health issues that people are dealing with. The undercurrent of that are the mental health issues that individuals are dealing with. And I'm sure many of us have seen in our communities that physical health needs are overarching mental health needs. And so that may be a challenge as ACA tries to move the message forward, move legislation forward, and advocate for all people having access to counseling and mental health services. It could be somewhat problematic, particularly as we think is a slow start point to the legislative session in January. And so I think that ACA will have to be very mindful of those particular challenges. As my colleagues have mentioned, many people are happy about the outcome of this election and many people are not happy. And that's reflected too in our membership. Our value is to move the mission of counseling forward, and we have to do that in a way that respects the values of the members that we serve as well. And while we may not all agree how to get to the common cause of that, it's important that we're respectful of each other's values. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your thoughts on this timely topic. For question 2, I mentioned divisiveness in question 1, and based on the civil unrest our country has seen this year, how do your experiences in leadership and or your skill set or style support the anti-racism work of our organization? Kimberly, first on this one.
So I feel like I embody that. I'm a walking billboard for that. My leadership style is really to work with what we have, like what are some of the strengths that people already possess and how do we capitalize on that to move whatever mission, whatever advocacy, with that, whatever outreach we're trying to do forward. I'm currently working with my students at LSU Health Sciences to create a student group so that we can have a student group for our Black, Brown students that are experiencing some challenges being graduate students as a minority portion of LSU Health Sciences students. And the hope is that we can create panels and trainings to help them navigate the difficulties that they're facing and hopefully create training for allies and aspiring allies to have the difficult conversations. As far as being in the presidency with AMCD, I initiated white papers for our ethnic VPs and their members to say, what are some of the issues that you're experiencing? What are some of the things that are important to you and how can AMCD help you with that? We had a town hall in which all of the VPs shared that with each other and with our membership, and they talked about how they could collaborate. I would want to do something similar to that. I think we need to reach out to the membership and find out what's important, and I think that would be what I would really focus on in the mission and build on what ACA already has present and all the initiatives that they're currently doing and the outreach and advocacy that they're currently doing.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think the experiences that I have had to this point really started, the salient point for me was being a president of a CERVIC during Conscious Clause legislation in my home state of Tennessee when that was passed in 2016. And that really gave me an opportunity to see kind of the values and differences that people can experience. And how do we move forward in terms of making sure that all people feel heard and that all people are having equal footing in order to move forward in what they want in their lives. You know, in terms of concrete, how I engage in that right now, as a hiring manager and working in higher education at a predominantly white institution, what I have strived to do is to recruit and retain individuals who represent various areas of diversity. And part of that means having conversations with people and creating relationships that are important in terms of being open and honest and respectful, making sure that we are taking the opportunities to look at microaggressions as they're happening and breaking down systemic barriers that are occurring. In this case, at the institution that I'm working in, that's been things such as pay inequities and opportunity inequities. And so those are the skills that I would bring to the table in this experience, is just having had those opportunities. So I think that those are the pieces that are really important to this process.
Thanks. And Judy.
Thank you.
I think that it's important as a leader to be transparent, to be proactive, and to be very engaged with our membership. So one of the things I would want to do is to really listen to our members and what the issues are and formulate some different plans around that. As a lifetime member of ACA and as an ACA fellow, as well as a founding board member of Counselors for Social Justice and a past president in that division, I have a lot of different experiences working with social justice issues, working around issues of racism and multiculturalism. So that is really at the heart of the work that I've done for really over 30 years. And like many of you, I am very concerned and deeply bothered by the toll that racism has taken on our clients, our communities, ourselves, and throughout our country. And so I believe that very strongly that we cannot sit silently, we cannot sit on the sidelines, and that we must take action. And that is, I think, a strength that I have. I am very action-oriented as a leader. And throughout my career, I've been very actively involved in addressing a lot of different things. So let me share a little bit about what I've done and then what I believe that we need to do. So I have a history of focusing on systemic issues and particularly racism. I've written over 10 articles related to racism. In the early 90s, I had the fortune to and the honor to be able to work with a group of multicultural leaders who helped to create some systemic change within ACA. And one of those changes was to actually make sure that in our conference proposals, we had to address multiculturalism, which is critical in each one of those proposals. And then, you know, last year I had a very big honor to be able to lead a task force to write ACA's anti-racism statement and to help start to develop some action plans around that. And I was really honored to be able to do that. Then also, I had the opportunity to serve on ACA's task force looking at racism, and ACA has created a plan, a multi-year plan, and that I feel very strongly about and feel that it's important that we focus on that action plan and continue to listen to our members and develop that even farther. I also served on AHC's committee, I chaired it, and I'm serving on it now for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I have a lot of different experiences and a long history working on these different issues. So clearly I have the depth of experience, I have the commitment, I have the passion, and I will support the multi-year plan that ACA has developed around looking at issues of racism and institutional racism within ACA. And I will also work very hard to develop a mentoring program for diverse leaders, because I think that's our future. We need to really focus on developing and growing new leaders that are very diverse for our future. Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing your views on the important work that we're continuing to do here at ACA on anti-racism. For our third question, students and new professionals are the future of our organization. So how will you engage these two groups in the strategic initiatives of ACA? And we'll start with Elizabeth first on this one.
Thank you. I think first off, I thought about this question and I asked around to some new professionals and students that I know, and they couldn't actually articulate any of the strategic plan or the strategic initiatives. I thought that was an important piece of information. And so I did a little investigating and realized that it takes me about 4 clicks to get to the PDF that has the strategic plan on it for ACA. And so I think part of this process is to create a culture around this. If we're trying to get folks invested, be it our students and new professionals or even our existing professionals in our organization, what we need to do is create a culture around our strategic plan and our strategic initiatives. And that could be as simple as, linking some of our strategic initiatives to articles that are happening in counseling today, so that way people are seeing those links very clearly. And then also creating actionable items around our strategic initiatives, thinking about the fact that for some people, more passive information, such as reading an article, is enough involvement in our strategic initiatives. And for other folks, they want more actionable items, say advocating to their legislators. When we're thinking about getting our students and our new professionals involved, part of this initiative and part of speaking with students is to really be mindful of the fact that if we want to increase diversity, we also need to think about increasing diversity in terms of making sure that clinicians who are in the field and in private practice who may sacrifice their incomes in order to be leaders in our field have opportunities. And so that means creating pathways for leadership and broadening our thoughts around leadership so that that way there are opportunities that are maybe a little less involved, but are still considered leadership that scale up to things like being on governing council. I think it's important that we're listening to what it is that people can put into their volunteer leadership, how much they can commit, and respecting the fact that leadership and involvement comes in many forms. And that if we want to think about engaging the voices of the next generation of counselors, we're going to have to be much more flexible about making sure that not only are these initiatives things that they want and things that they're interested in, particularly as we think about reauthoring the strategic plan in the upcoming years, but also that the levels of involvement are respectful of what people truly can give. Because our world has changed dramatically again in 2020. Our economy has changed dramatically in 2020. And so we have to be mindful of the fact that folks are going to have a developmental pathway that allows them the opportunity to engage in a stepwise process for these initiatives. Thank you.
Thanks, Judy.
I'm really committed to focusing on what we can do for students and new professionals within ACA. Clearly, they are a future of our organization, the future of our profession. And they represent about half, if not a little more than half of ACA's membership. And yet I don't really think that we have fully addressed the different needs of students and new professionals. And last year, I purposely chose to serve on ACA's task force on students and new professionals so I could get a better sense of what some of the issues are. And I believe that we have just begun to touch the surface of what ACA really needs to do to address these diverse and very unique needs of this population. Also, by serving on the Governing Council for 9 years now, I believe that I have a very deep understanding of our organization as well as our initiatives. And I actually had the opportunity to help to create the strategic plan and feel that there are things that are really good about it and things that we can also work to change. And I'd be honored to have the opportunity to do a number of different things regarding students and new professionals. First off, I think it's really important that we assess what the needs are. So I would like to do town hall meetings as well as some surveys to see what are some of the unique needs of both of those two groups, as well as that transition from student to new professional. And this relates to an initiative we have that has to do with practice support and making sure that our counselors have all the resources that they need to be successful. Second, I'd like to focus on how we can support this seamless transition from being a student to a new professional, because oftentimes we lose members in that process because I think we're not adequately serving their needs. Third, I would like to continue to support portability. I think this is essential for our profession, and I've worked on 2 task forces related to portability. This is in one of our advocacy initiatives to promote seamless portability. So I'd like to continue to work on that effort because I think that's important for students and new professionals. Fourth, I want to fiercely advocate for fair and equitable compensation and also work to increase our recognition professionally and legislatively. And this has to also do with an initiative that we have around advocacy and focusing on all the different practice settings that we have. Fifth, I want to, as I'd mentioned before, I want to create a mentoring program to help to foster diverse leadership within our profession. And this relates to one of our initiatives that has to do with relevance and building a diverse and inclusive and engaged pipeline of leaders. Clearly, students and new professionals are the future of ACA. They're the future of our profession. And I would work very hard, if elected president, to focus on what their needs are and to be able to move some of these different pieces forward that would help to create a better and more satisfying membership for students and new professionals.
Thanks, Judy. Kimberly.
I think the number one thing with students and new professionals is it's important for them to see themselves reflected back. I remember being a student and seeing Dr. Beverly OBrien in a leadership role in ACA and being president and thinking, man, that could really be me. And it was because she was there, because I saw myself in her. I think it's important to do that building this pipeline that we've been talking about for so long in ACA, we have to build that pipeline and have to make it diverse. I think there's so many things that happen in ACA that many people don't even know about. Students, new professionals, old professionals don't even know half of the stuff that ACA is doing. And I think it's important for ACA to advertise that and put it out in more areas, more media, so that people can get that information. In regards to students and new professionals, I think it's important for us to create some kind of transition for them to support them from the transition from student to new professional. I think we do a lot with students, but it's almost like we kind of leave the new professionals out there and they don't really know what to do or what they're supposed to be doing. In the sense of, I know I'm a new professional, but what does that look like? So I think that if we did more webinars and provided more resources and did more panels about what that transition should look like, what are some things that they should be doing in that transition, what are some things that they can be connecting to, whether it be the division, whether it be the larger ACA organization, would be really helpful. As someone who served as the chair of the mentoring program for AMCD, one of the first in the divisions, we've done many things with that to really support our new professionals in the sense of creating opportunities for them to get their research out, creating opportunities for them to be able to present. I think all of that should be translated into what we're doing at ACA too, beyond the other initiatives that are already present with ACA.
Thanks. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts on the important work for our next generation of counselors with our students and our new professionals. And now we have our final question of the evening. And so ACA components across the country are doing amazing work to advance the profession. What strengths do you think the branches, regions, and divisions contribute to the overall mission and vision of ACA? We start with Judy.
Thank you, Heather. I think that our branches, regions, and divisions all play a very unique and important role in creating the profession and the ACA as a whole. I served as a past president for 2 state divisions, AMCD and ACES. So I have some experience working at the state level. I think that we could probably do a better job within ACA of addressing more the state and regional needs. I think greater outreach to those different entities is going to be really, really important. And offering, again, sort of looking at what their needs are, perhaps doing a survey, and then being able to offer what they're looking for, being able to offer the types of services, resources, outreach, whatever it may be that's important for them. And I think one of the challenges of ACA has always been, how do we address those different needs at the state, the region, and then within divisions? And clearly, I think our divisions have sort of been at the forefront of certainly the Governing Council and some of the different work that we do, because they have greater representation there. But I think also that it's important that we look at how we can work together. If elected president, I would follow in the shoes of a former president who worked hard to bring together the different divisions and the regions and the states to create some kind of a joint project that they could work on together, so that when I was president of CSJ, the initiative we did was at the conference, and it was very widely attended, and it was a huge success and really brought people together on a lot of different levels. So off the top of my head, since we didn't have this question ahead of time, these are some of the different things that I would do. to focus on in terms of strengthening each one of those areas and making sure that folks feel that they're being represented and that they have the needs that that the needs that they have are being met through ACA. I think that's really what's critical. Thank you.
Thanks. Kim, what strengths do you think the branches, regions, and divisions contribute to the overall mission and vision of ACA?
I think they contribute everything, because that normally is how a lot of people get introduced to ACA, through the branches, the divisions, and the regions. That's how I got introduced to ACA, because I was with my state division and within my branch there, and just worked my way up. And many people they stop at the state level because it becomes too expensive, or they don't feel like they can make that big jump, or it's not inclusive. So I think we do need to figure out how to make it more of a seamless connection, versus some of the connections is not as seamless. And some people don't really know what's going on at the branch level, or don't know what's going on at the ACA level, or don't know what's going on with the national division, but know everything that's going on at the state division. So I think that there needs to be more collaboration. There's a lot of good work happening. I know that is what kept me connected as I moved across the country. I was always connected to the branches at the state level and the divisions. So I think we need to do more to figure out, not just like, what are they doing? We already know what they're doing, but make that something that we can kind of feature in the branches within ACA, the divisions within ACA, and make that more seamless, so that it's not as this disconnected as it is now. Because I think a lot of people feel like it's kind of nebulous, like they either know what's going on at the state level and they don't know what's going on at the ACA and division level, or they know what's going on ACA division and not at the state level and the regional level too.
Thank you. Elizabeth, what do you think the branches, regions, and divisions contribute to the overall mission and vision of ACA?
When I think about my own experiences in the branches and the divisions, I think of it as the pipeline for leadership for ACA at large. And so I think that the regions and the divisions and the branches, they are the pipeline for leadership. They are the opportunity to really understand at a different level the inner workings of an organization that grows and grows and grows into this big umbrella that is ACA. I do think that the inherent wisdom that happens within the division is a microcosm for what happens in ACA, as well as the states and in the regions. I think some of the wisdom that comes from those different entities includes regional knowledge. ACA National lives in DC. And so while they may have a good pulse on what's happening in one area, the reality is the regions understand what's happening in their regions and understand the important barriers and opportunities that counselors and counselor educators have in those particular areas. So I think that inherent wisdom needs to be harnessed and honored. I think that there needs to be reciprocity in terms of what it is that ACA National can do for the divisions and the regions and the states, simply because states and all of these groups need to understand what it is that ACA can give. And sometimes I think there's a bit of mystery around what those things are. And then two, what is it that ACA can sometimes offer to these different entities? Again, sometimes having experiences working in division and in state branches, sometimes there tends to be a disconnect in terms of communication. So I think that that's really important, is that those two things are honored. And then two, how do we engage each other? So special projects is one action item that you definitely could engage in, but also how do we feature them at conference beyond special sessions for different branches or different divisions? How do we engage in a pipeline that commingles our regions and our states and our divisions, but also commingles leadership that's happening in ACA with mentorship, moving beyond our common networks that we have now? So I think that that's what's really important.
Great, thank you. Well, this concludes our questions for the evening. I'm sure our candidates are relieved they didn't have the last question ahead of time. So thank you all for sharing. You all did very well with that, for sharing your thoughts. If you want to learn even more about our candidates. Their statements and full biographical information are coming up in the December issue of Counseling Today, so be on the lookout for that. And I want to take a second to remind everybody about the importance of our yearly elections. This process is a chance for the members to make an important choice about the future of your association, of our association. The election will be open on December 1st. Members will receive the voting instructions electronically on this date. And it's imperative the ACA has a valid email address for you on file because it's all done electronically. So please take a minute to log on to your member record and verify your email. And then our ACA staff has dropped some important election information into the chat, so check that out before you leave the event tonight. Again, thank you to our 3 candidates for ACA President-elect, Dr. Judy Daniels, Dr. Kimberly Frazier, Dr. Elizabeth O'Brien, for your thoughts, your passion, and your interest in serving our association and our membership and our professional counselors everywhere. And stay safe, everyone, and enjoy the upcoming holiday season. And remember to vote in our election.